Good evening and welcome to East Hampton Media's second School Committee Voters Forum. Tonight with us we have the remaining 4 candidates, and they are Ms. Casey Corsello, Mrs. Cynthia Kwasinski, Mrs. Deb Lusnia, and Mr. Mark Smith. Thank you for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
So I just want to right now take the opportunity to clarify any questions about the format, or does anyone have any questions, or do we want to just jump right in? Ready to roll? Okay, so great, because I did some explaining last night. I think we can just go right into it. In lieu of opening statements, we're going to ask each candidate a question, and that will be their opening statement. So the question is, starting with Casey. Casey, why are you running for school committee?
I'm running for school committee because I feel very passionate about the schools in East Hampton. My daughter's in first grade at Center School. And last year I was able to kind of jump right in and volunteer. And I was able to become the PTO co-chair. And I really saw that the elementary schools are really amazing. They're doing really wonderful things. And thankfully, a parent who is a Maple parent spoke to me about East Hampton schools and how great they are. And so I took her word for it. And when I went and I met the teachers and the faculty and the administrators, I was really impressed. And we had an amazing experience last year. And so I'm running for school committee because I really believe in the schools, and I think that they do a very good job. And I feel like a lot of families choice out because they aren't aware of how great the schools are. And I really feel like, you know, being part of the East Hampton community is really beneficial. And I'm running for school committee because I really believe in a very strong school community as well as a very strong city community. And I feel like that really, you know, helps us to grow and to accomplish all of the issues that come about when we're really connected and, you know, working together as a team as opposed to just, you know, being disconnected. So I really feel very passionate about the schools, and I'm ready to be in service. Thank you.
Okay, Cynthia, why are you running for school committee?
I'm running for school committee because I've had a lifelong commitment to children. I started out as an abuse counselor in Franklin County. For the last 15 years, I've been a teacher, a special education teacher in Hatfield at Smith Academy. And I have a passion and enthusiasm for helping children to grow and succeed. My kids went to school in East Hampton, and I believe that it's time for me to give back to the community. My program for my job is stable, so now I have the time and the energy to give back to my community. I'm very passionate about bringing school of choice dollars back to our community. I have some ideas about that. I also believe that it's important for us to open the communication lines between the schools and the families that we serve. I'm really good at that. I'm a liaison for my kids, for my students, and I'd like to help our community really reach out to all of the members of the community, the parents, the children, and especially other communities to bring some of those dollars back that we've lost every year.
Okay, thank you. Deb, why are you running for school committee? You're running for re-election.
I'm running for re-election. I'm just finishing my 4th year on the school committee, and this is my 2nd year as chairperson of the committee. I've thoroughly enjoyed my experience on the committee. I've been involved in the schools since 2004, and that's when my oldest daughter started in East Hampton Public Schools. And I was so ecstatic about her experience when we began back in 2004 that I was very, very excited about wanting to spread the word about how great our schools are here in East Hampton. And so I got involved right away in the school system and served as a volunteer in a variety of capacities over 7 years prior to my school committee service in a lot of different ways, mostly focused on marketing and public relations efforts, but also planning, strategic planning, that sort of thing. And so 4 years ago, decided I'd really like to get involved in an even more in-depth way in being part of the school committee. And I'd like to continue on the committee. I think experience helps a lot. There's so much to learn. I've learned a lot about state mandates and state laws and the budgeting process. And I'm excited to continue my work. I feel like I have a lot to offer at this point in terms of experience and goals for the future, and would like to continue to some of the things that I've worked on in the past couple of years. For instance, state advocacy for change at the state level on a number of issues, whether it's charter school funding or Chapter 70 funding or circuit breaker funding, all sorts of issues. So I'd like to continue my work. I love our schools, I'm proud of our district, and I want to continue to work to make them the schools the best that they can be.
Great. Mr. Mark Smith, why are you running for school committee?
Well, when we decided to place to live after I retired from the service, we chose East Hampton because we've heard so many good things about it. And we moved here 17 years ago, and our kids have gone through the school system. One's a junior right now, and just to see them grow through the system, it's been phenomenal. The teachers are great here. I like to support the higher education for our kids, and just a big supporter of the schools.
Okay, great. Thank you. So jumping right in, sorry, sometimes I have to adjust my timer, which is my phone. The first question of real substance is, Cynthia, would you please define the authority afforded to you as a school committee representative as provided by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts?
Well, I will admit that I am not well versed in the exact wording, but I know that our school committee is responsible for budget, for hiring of superintendents, and for directing policy in the school system. That's a crucial part of any school system, is having a responsible school committee that understands the issues that each district is facing. So.
Okay. Deb?
The primary responsibilities of the school committee are hiring, supervising, goal setting for the superintendent, and any management-related issues with regard to the superintendent. Also reviewing and approving the budget. It's a big one. And also goal setting for the district, and monitoring our progress with goals and setting and fine-tuning those goals along the way, measuring our success. And let's see, superintendent, budget, and setting policy. And that's another important role of the school committee. And a lot of what we do is dictated by the state for policy, and we need to adapt it to our particular situation on the local level. But then there's also policies that need to be made that are strictly all about our local district. So that about sums up the role of the school committee.
Mr. Smith?
Role of the school committee, well, as everybody else has said so far, the superintendent, our responsibility is to hire the superintendent, and the superintendent works for the school committee. We work hand in hand, but they actually work for the school committee. For the budget, we don't make a budget. We approve it, we discuss it, and then we send it on to the mayor, and she has the last say. For policies, the school committee does not set policies. It approves policies, and it gets policies from the state, and we adapt those policies to our district.
Okay. Casey?
So from my understanding is that it is in charge of hiring the superintendent and working together with the superintendent to implement budget, to implement policies, and in the context of state mandates, and also making decisions for the district. And I believe that as the school committee, being transparent and accessibility is really important. So that everyone is working together as a team, with the mayor, the school committee, the superintendent, and the city councilors, so that everybody together is making the best decision for the schools in the district. Thanks.
Okay, so at this time, is there any general discussion would you like to have any general discussion? Not all of these questions, just my disclaimer, not all of the questions will lend themselves to general discussion, but they all need to be asked, so.
I guess I would just like to say that even though school committees don't create policy, they can influence how a school runs. I know in my district where I work, our school committee is very hands-on. And as a school committee member myself, if I got elected, I would be in every school really finding out what's going on and finding out the needs. And I believe that school committees can be very integral in directing where schools go. We have a lot of mandates that come down from the state, and how we handle them, I think, is something that we can do as a team.
And I would say sometimes we do create policies that aren't handed to us by the state, but we create them based on the needs within the district. So that does happen on occasion where we see a need for that.
Anyone else? Okay, so moving on to the next question. Deb, how would you craft a budget to reflect educational excellence given the current financial restraints?
Well, one of the things that I'm very excited about is I've been a big advocate of zero-based budgeting. And I'm very excited because our new business manager is also a fan of zero-based budgeting. And so that is the approach that's going to be taken this year. And I feel that that's a very healthy approach because you're basically starting from scratch and building the budget from scratch. And you're not taking a previous year's budget and just adding or subtracting from it. And I think it's really healthy because I think it's important to question everything that we're doing and really weigh new opportunities against old ways to make sure that we're not just keeping what was done previously and not being able to afford what's new, but really, really comparing the two choices or multiple choices. So I'm excited about this year coming up and taking that kind of approach to the budget and really scrutinizing all that we do and making sure that we're putting our dollars behind the very best opportunities for our kids.
Great, thank you. Mr. Smith? I'm sorry, I should just call you Mark. I've used first names for everyone.
That's fine. You
Mark?
repeat the question, please?
Yes. How would you craft a budget to reflect educational excellence given the current financial restraints?
Well, there's never enough funding to go around, it seems like nowadays. I don't know anything about the zero budget and what Deb was talking about. Hopefully I'll learn. But there's so many needs and wants that the schools need. And sometimes there's just not enough money to go around. I can't really answer any more about the budget because I really don't know.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Stacey?
I'm like Mark. I don't know much about the budget, but I do like that approach, Deb, and that's a very exciting thing that's happening this year. In terms of budget cuts and not having enough money to go around, it is important to really keep the faculty there, and also I think it's really important to keep things like the enrichment programs, the arts, the music, the healthy things, sports and all those things in the budget for kids, because it's not just the education piece that's very important, but it's also more of a holistic. It's incorporating the arts, the music, their movement. It all goes into learning, and What I found in being on the PTO is that while there is, there is a lack of budget and, schools are kind of, not having everything that they need, but as the PTO, we have a very big volunteer base, and we really encourage volunteerism to really help support the schools, the teachers, the administrators, where, maybe they need more bodies to help out with different projects. And, I applied for a grant last year that I got from the Massachusetts Cultural Council for an artist to come in as a resident. And there's ways to get money into the school through grants and things like that. And so, I definitely believe that there's a certain budget, but there's a way to supplement where things are lacking, either through volunteerism or through grants and things like that. So, thanks.
Cynthia?
Casey said it very nicely. You need to really support, there's never enough money. You have to support your facility, yes. But what drives schools are your teachers and your programs. If you have quality teachers and you're able to hold on to all of those excellent teachers, if you can provide programs that provide a variety of learning, the arts, and electives for kids, you're going to pull in, you're going to hold on to the students that you have, and you're going to pull in students from other communities. So for me, it's teachers and programs first. Then you use grant money, you use volunteerism to fill in the gaps. If morale is really high, schools can run on really tight budgets. Yes, you can't run on a penny, but you can make do when morale is really high and you've got a quality staff.
Did I go through everybody? Okay. General discussion? Regarding budgeting? Okay, we'll move on then. Mark, how would you encourage volunteerism in schools, and how would you craft a policy which incorporates volunteers? Part 3 is, how active would you be in exposing new people to the district?
How would you get people to volunteer? That's a tough one there. Oh, I'm not sure. I'm really sure. No, sorry.
That's okay. Casey?
I like the question. So, as I said before, last year, I knew that I wanted to get involved in the schools. I didn't really know how that would look, but there was a PTO meeting, and I attended, and then I found, very inspired by the schools, and that, even just one person can make a difference. And so, the Center Pepin School and Maple School, they were very open to allowing parents to come and volunteer. And so as the PTO co-chair, and last year we were a brand new PTO. So the PTO had disbanded before, and this is for the elementary schools. And a group of really inspired, motivated parents got together and, redid the bylaws and really made it into a place that supports the schools and also brings all 3 schools together so that we have a really tight community. And I believe that, volunteerism really kind of comes out when there's really excited, inspired parents doing it. And so like I said, it takes one person, but as that one parent is inspired, it creates kind of this ripple effect. And we've been seeing that in the PTO. Our volunteer list for Center Pepin, we have 200 parents. For Maple, we have over 150. And it really goes to the volunteer coordinator for both the elementary, or Center Pepin and Maple, really have a very good system. And so it's a real streamlined system for parents to volunteer, because not every parent has the time that I have. Some parents have 15 minutes a month, but they can go in and say, you know, I have 15 minutes, where can I be useful? And we're putting that to work. And I believe that that is how our schools are really going to thrive, by having this connected volunteering.
Great. Cynthia? Do you want
Well-
to repeat the question? Would that be helpful?
Sure.
Okay. So the question is, how would you encourage volunteerism in schools, or how would you craft a policy which incorporates volunteers? And how active would you be in exposing new people to the district?
That's a great two-parter, okay. In my school, I run the Community Service Club. And it's very exciting to get the students out in the community. We put on a breakfast for Santa. We put on a breakfast for the Easter Bunny. We go down and mentor the elementary school kids. And we do a number of different activities, food drives throughout the year. I would like to get more of our student body out volunteering publicly in the community to create excitement. And then I'd like to see welcoming committees from parents of students who will go and welcome new families to the area, because what I'm finding is that there are some families that move into the area and they never send their kids to the school. They don't know that the school is good. They've heard about other school districts, and so they choice out immediately. But I think we can turn that around if we set out parents and families and kids and do some marketing to these new families. Welcome them to the community. Tell them what great things are going on. And get them excited about at least coming into the school and seeing what we have to offer.
Great.
That's awesome.
Deb?
I just would have to say, for a while now, I've been a strong proponent of increasing the volunteerism in the East Hampton Public Schools. And I've always felt as though it's going to be really important as budgets get tighter and tighter to reach out to our community. And I'd really like to see us build a force of retired teachers that could help with tutoring, that we could get commitments from on a weekly basis, whether it be an hour a week or whether it be 3 days a week, whatever people could share with us, and really work on supplementing our tutoring services and a lot of our educational services with some retired teacher volunteers. So I'd like to create that base. Of course, there's also opportunities with artists in town and parents and all the variety of skills and talents they could bring to the schools. Last year, I guess it was last year, I was speaking of volunteerism during a budget session at one of our meetings, and there was a large crowd in the audience, so I thought it was a perfect opportunity to secure people to help out. And so I asked anyone at that meeting who would be interested in helping us to work on volunteerism in the district to sign up on a piece of paper left on the table. And so I had quite a nice group of people, and I started a series of meetings at that time, meeting with that group to brainstorm. I really thought it might be important to have a paid volunteer coordinator in the district. And of course, we can't afford to pay a volunteer coordinator, but I think that in order to have the dedicated effort that we really need, that was important. So we had a series of meetings to see how we could go about doing that, brainstorming, how we could afford that, how we could fundraise to support that kind of an effort. And what that actually turned into was the newly created PTO. So that effort ended up, we looked into assuming their nonprofit status because the former PTO was dissolving. So we were going to take the nonprofit status and work from there. And that ended up rolling into a new PTO. And then my quest to have a volunteer coordinator paid position within that PTO structure ended up taking a back seat because of many other priorities to get established.
Great. Any more general discussion on volunteerism in schools?
I'd like to just speak on what you said about families choicing out, and I'd like to really speak about the success of this newly created PTO. And there is an energy in our community. There's an energy in East Hampton. It's almost a grassroots feeling of families that are really taking ownership of their children's education, and it's taking an active role and not saying, oh, well, I don't like this, that, and the other thing, I'm going to go somewhere else. It's what can I do to help What can I do to be a solution instead of talk about a problem? And the people on the PTO, and that's my philosophy. How can I be how can I be in service and be a solution rather than talk about a problem? Because I am capable. Just me. I can really help to make a difference. And we did an outreach, kindergarten outreach last year, where we kept many families in the district. And it was our outreach coordinator, Rebecca Belcher-Timmy, who is also a very passionate parent. She put together the outreach night. It was a kindergarten information night, just like other area schools, charter schools have, and families stayed. And it's really about tapping into that community. We're all here together, and we can all make it something. The school's the very best that they can be.
I'd just also like to add, as Casey has said, we have a wonderful volunteer effort going on in a volunteer coordinator for the elementary schools,
Yes.
and it's a phenomenal program going on. And I'd really like to see that district-wide. And it would be
Yes.
great if we could pay the people to do what they're doing, because it's a lot of work. So, and I just look at that, paying someone as sustaining the effort and
Right.
not making it impossible for someone to do at the level at which things need to be done. But I just want to compliment the elementary level. It's been amazing, the people that have worked on that volunteer, piecing all the volunteers together.
Great.
Megan Frazier, she's been
She's phenomenal.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
And yeah,
We're very fortunate.
we are very fortunate. Yes.
So we would just love to do that district-wide
Yeah.
and really enhance, and different avenues of volunteerism. Like I said, retired teachers, and kind of beef up and strengthen some other areas of volunteerism.
And I agree. I think that's the key. There are so many dedicated people in East Hampton. We need to really channel that, communicate, let them know what our needs are, and people will step up once they know that we need them.
Right. And we have several retired teachers that work faithfully volunteering in our schools now. It's wonderful. I just hope that we could expand that and really reach out to those that might be willing to help us out too. And even in our local college area, to tap into the colleges for volunteers. I'd love to see us tap into them for more help with foreign language instruction in our district, and build on some of those areas as well.
Great. Okay, so this next question goes to Casey first. It goes to everyone, but Casey first. Casey, how do you envision the partnership between the school district and community television?
Well, I believe strongly in transparency, and I believe in having access to our meetings. And yes, it's open to the public, and not everybody can make it during those times. And I feel that it is a service to our community that the Access Television is providing all the information, so that if somebody wants to speak with me, if I get elected about a topic that I was speaking about, that they have the information. They're just as much a part of it as if they weren't at the meeting. Thanks.
Okay. Cynthia?
There are a lot of people who are really interested in what goes on in the school committee meetings, but they can't make it to the meeting. So Access Television is really critical in helping us to figure out what the issues are. When we're sitting at home and you're cooking a meal and you're helping your kids with homework, you still care about what's happening in that meeting. So that's a way for us to reach out to the community and let them know what's going on and what our issues are.
Deb?
Well, it's wonderful that we have East Hampton Media to cover our meetings. That's huge. But I also feel like we could do so much more with this resource. I would love to see us utilize East Hampton Media much more to reach out to parents, reach out to the community with information about the schools, sharing information, helping the community better understand our budget, our challenges, the good things that are happening in the schools, promoting events, general advertising for our schools. We could do so much more with East Hampton Media. It would be wonderful if we could take greater advantage of this resource that's here. So that would be an awesome opportunity for us.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
Community TV here is a great resource, and it's a great way of getting the word out to all the families in East Hampton. They do provide a great service. They film the school committee meetings, and it's just a phenomenal way to reach out. And I think it could be utilized better.
Okay, any general discussion? I mean, I'd like to see that, so feel free.
I would like to
bring
speak
it
with
in.
you about the PTO as well.
There's so many ways that
Yeah.
we could utilize East Hampton media to our benefit to help us so much with linking with the community, with parents, advertising, everything. There's an endless number of opportunities, and we should really be taking better advantage of that and working more closely with you to make that happen. We should definitely have that be as an action plan for us.
Well, that's an exciting thing. We all agree. Okay, moving forward, the next question starts with Cynthia. Cynthia, each year we hear feedback that choice and charter schools negatively impact our district. What local solutions can you propose?
Choice and charter schools threaten every district. Some districts lose more choice dollars than they take in, and that really depletes the budget. One of the things that I'd like to see is consistent use of exit surveys. Let's find out why our kids are choicing out, why our families are choicing out, and that's part of the reaching out to all of the families in the community, those that are not sending their kids to our schools. Let's go and talk to them and find out what it is that's making them choice out, because we might be able to answer those questions, answer those concerns just by reaching out to those families. I also think that it's really important to advertise and market ourselves to other communities. There are school of choice dollars out there, and some communities have not embraced and invited all the choice dollars that they could because they're not marketing themselves to other communities. We could do a whole campaign using students who have already choiced in and putting them out to the community in advertisements on the radio, in the newspaper, with editorials about why they choiced in, and try to build a real marketing campaign so that schools know just what's going on in East Hampton. Parents know what's going on, and other communities say, hey, okay, this is where I'm going to send my child. I'm not happy with my district right now, so I'm going to send them to East Hampton. But that's not going to happen unless we do a real marketing campaign to those communities.
Can you just repeat the question?
I would
Patty,
love
so
to
I
repeat
make
the
sure I
question.
Answer the.
So the question is, each year we hear feedback that choice and charter schools negatively impact our district. What local solutions do you propose?
It's a good question. And I keep wanting to jump on a lot of things that Cynthia said. She's got a lot of good points. Interestingly enough, we do exit surveys when people choice out of our schools. We have one that's going to be happening this month for this year. What's interesting is most families that choice out, the majority, have never stepped foot in our buildings before. So that really tells us a lot about the fact that it's a perception issue, perhaps, and not based on experience. And so that we really do need to work on continuing to improve the perception of East Hampton schools and really get the word out as to how great our schools actually are. The other thing is we have an outreach committee in place, which is meeting tonight for the first time this year. And the outreach committee is really focused on doing all of that, really trying to reach out to the community, to spread the word about East Hampton schools, to make the connection with the community, to highlight all of our successes, and all of that is in an effort to retain our own students. And our focus really is on retaining our current students, more so than attracting others from other districts. I think first and foremost, we need to retain our own. We do have students' choice in from other districts, but not to a large extent. But we'd really like to first and foremost serve our residents. Gee, there's so much I have to say on this subject. I'm afraid I'm rambling on too much. But continuing to promote our schools, advertise our schools, and explain in detail all that's great about them is really crucial. I feel like I want to fit it all in. I guess I'll stop here and I'll
It's
chime in
okay,
later.
because we'll also open up for general discussion. And that's the area where that, it was the intent that you guys would be able to engage in more dialogue than is usually traditional in traditional debates.
Right.
So, Mark, would you like me to repeat the
Sure,
question
please.
for you? Okay, so each year we hear feedback that choice in charter schools negatively impact our district. What local solutions can you propose?
Well, Deb and Cindy said it very well, that they do damage the school districts. All that, the money is going to these other schools. I don't know if there's a way that the state could maybe fund charter schools versus the actual city funding the charter schools. Surveys going out to families that the kids are leaving the school or coming in. We need to get that information and figure out what to do. We'd like to, of course, have everybody choose East Hampton, but parents do have a choice, and we need to honor that choice, whether it's East Hampton or another school district.
Something else that I'd like to add is, I think, a very exciting opportunity for us is a new school facility, a new elementary school, potentially a new K through 8, depending on what the state determines. But having a new building for our younger grades, I think, would do a tremendous amount for turning around school choice numbers. I think a lot of people are immediately turned off by our buildings, and they never get past that to really go inside our buildings and see the wonderful learning and teaching that's going on, and to really feel the community and all that's great about East Hampton schools. I think our buildings at the lower grade levels can be a real turnoff. So I'm excited about the opportunity to have a new school building in East Hampton for our lower grades, and I think that could do a tremendous amount for turning around those school choice numbers.
Anyone else? In general discussion, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't get to respond.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry too.
It's okay.
I
It's
jumped
okay.
in, I'm sorry.
all
I
right.
jumped in thinking it was general discussion.
All right.
I did too, I'm sorry. Sorry for folks at home, we're amateurs. So Casey,
Yes, hello.
can I read the question for you again? Just to,
Yes,
So
yes.
I'm just going to confess that I discovered today that I did exactly the same thing to another candidate last night. And that the discussion was impassioned and everybody jumped in, and I realized we never actually gave her the opportunity. So I apologize to you and thank you for calling me out.
Hey,
'Cause
I
that's
will
great.
do that anytime.
So each year we hear feedback that choice in charter schools negatively impacts our district. What local solutions can you propose?
So I, again, speak to what we've been doing in the PTO. And this has been a very hot topic because I was that parent who had the choice, because I came in, we went to Williston Children's Center where there were choices of charter schools and, going to different towns where I live. I actually live a half mile from West Hampton. I live a half mile from Southampton, and I'm in East Hampton. So it wouldn't have mattered. But my husband and I really felt strongly about staying in our community. And, we found that the schools are great, but there's not a lot of information about there. In fact, there's a lot of negative information. And so negative information kind of spreads like wildfire. And, it's like, they have these little buzz points or talking points when the information, positive information is, in my opinion, I think there's more positive than there is negative in the schools. And the PTO really had a big push for outreach to keep kindergarten families in the schools. And the other outreach is for when, fourth grade ends and then families go into, the middle school at fifth grade. And I think that's another big push, another way that we can do a lot of outreach to inform parents that, yes, the teachers, the administrators are great here at Whitebrook. And in terms of charter schools, the intention, I think, in the beginning was to have a different way of teaching and educating, and, we could, I don't know, couple or connect with the charter school to see what it is that they are doing, because I'm not quite sure what financially is going to happen on a state level, and I know that. Okay, thank you.
So, let's open that up to general discussion now, since we jumped the gun earlier. So, any other comments about charter and choice?
I just wanted to say that, like Deb said about the buildings, I think initially people look at the buildings and then they make a judgment, and the buildings are old. I believe that Maple School is the oldest functioning school in the state, which is great, but, it still probably looks like it did way back when. But it doesn't mean that what is inside is not amazing. And so I think it takes marketing, it takes parents, it takes families to really speak of their experience in the schools. And that's what we've done on the PTO, and I definitely love that there's an outreach committee in the school committee, which I'm very excited about. And I have no problem speaking about my experience. In fact, Deb and I are both on the website, the East Hampton School District website. And I worked a lot with Mike Reardon, who is he's the PR guy for the district last year. So.
Yeah, and just another word on the outreach committee. I kind of tried to put a little plug in there. There's a meeting tonight at 6 o'clock at 50 Payson Avenue, and it's a group of people. I'm the only one on the school committee who serves on the outreach committee. Currently, the superintendent has been running it, and I think she's looking to maybe turn that over to a community leader instead of having her run the group. But there's been great attendance in the past from a diverse segment of diverse portions of the community. And I think there's so much potential for so much that can be done for outreach, all part of that PR effort to really educate the community about how fabulous our schools are. So I just would encourage anyone who would like to get involved to please come and join the outreach committee to connect with the superintendent or the superintendent's office, and we'll keep you in the loop for dates and times for future meetings. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to get involved to help turn that around.
Good.
Any other discussion?
No, I see great articles in the newspaper about our schools, but I really think that we need to do more. We really need to have more community events that draw people into the buildings, past the fact that the buildings are old, and into rooms where they can meet parents, students. Happy students are some of our best ambassadors, and I think we don't use students often enough to spread the word about our school system. I mean, if you really want to know what's going on in a district, ask the students. Ask them if they're happy. Ask them if they're fulfilled. Ask them if they're learning. Do they have choices? Are they excited? Or is going to school a bummer every day? Do we have to drag them? You're going to hear from students exactly how many great teachers they have, how many interesting projects they're doing. And I think we need to get those kids talking and on air and out in the community and in situations where they're going to meet families so that they can talk about their school system naturally and in a really honest fashion. And we're going to start making a better image for the town, for our school systems.
I wanted to just speak on that. At the kindergarten night, the outreach night, the fourth graders, they got to speak about their experience at Maple and Center and Pepin, and it was great. I think it really hit home for the families coming in as kindergartners, because here they have been through the school, and it was really cool to see, where they were, and they were probably the best advertisement for the schools.
Okay, great.
Is there time to add one more thought or no?
Just barely, but go ahead.
Okay, just one other thought on the topic of retaining our students and attracting students and all is, one other thing is, and connecting to what you're saying, Cynthia, retaining our customers is so important. It was really important. And in addition to bringing back those that have maybe gone away because of our buildings or whatever reason. And so one of the things that we're working on diligently now too is being much more proactive about soliciting how things are going and feedback from our parents, looking at them as our customers, and our students, and getting feedback on what's working, what needs improvement, how are you feeling about things, what do you really like about your school and your environment, what needs improvement. Anyway, I personally feel that it's very important to stay very close to our customers and know how they're feeling and be able to respond to those feelings and be proactive in making happy customers and a happy community.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was a hearty discussion. The next question goes to Deb, and it is, do you think that the possibility of using a Proposition 2.5 override to increase school funding should be explored? And if so, what would you do as a school committee member, if elected, to explore such an override?
I would not be in favor of that for general expenses, for a general override. And one of the key reasons why is I am very much in favor of pursuing a new elementary facility or K-8 facility for our district. And I don't think our community is in a position to support both efforts. So pursuing an override for debt exclusion override for a new building project would be my priority. I think that would be most important in meeting our needs. And I honestly feel that if we had a new facility, that our school choice numbers would turn around drastically, and that would bring more money into the district because we wouldn't be losing the 1.2 million or 1.8 million, depending on how you want to look at the numbers, each year through children leaving our district. So I think we'd have a lot to gain by a new facility for our students, for our teachers, and for retaining students, for bringing students back. I think there'd just be a win-win situation. So my focus would be on strongly advocating for a Prop 2.5 override for a debt exclusion for funding a new building project.
Okay. Mark, can I repeat the question for you?
Sure, please.
Do you think that the possibility of using a Proposition 2.5 override to increase school funding should be explored? And if so, what would you do as a school committee member if elected to explore such an override?
2.5 override, I'm not in favor of the 2.5 override. It's, well, I don't agree with it because it's one of those taxes that will never go away. We need to support our schools through our own taxes. If we have to maybe raise them or whatever, but I think we should definitely. I don't support it at all.
Okay. Casey?
I'd like to, I agree with Deb that, to have the Prop 2.5 override to increase the funding for a new school, I am in favor of it. And I'm in favor of it because it is an investment in my children. It's an investment in our community because we have families. East Hampton it's really has this real buzz. Families want to come in and they want to stay. They want to be part of the community. And so having, a brand new high school and a brand new school, whether it's, the K-8 or which is what I am in favor of, it keeps families in. And so I strongly believe in the investment in education. And yes, I am in support of that if it is for the new building.
Okay, great. Cynthia?
We're in agreement. I think we've reached the point where our buildings are old and we need to do something. Nobody wants their taxes to go up. Nobody wants to pay an extra cent. Money is tight for everybody, I realize that. But schools are the lifeblood of a community, and the education of our kids is so crucial. If you're in a facility that is just breaking down, you can piece it together, but it's time. It just has gotten to the point, I know we don't want to hear it, but it's gotten to the point where it's time for us to start looking at building that new building. I'm willing to push for it. As distasteful as it is to pay for it, I think we need it.
The other thing, is it okay for general discussion?
Yes, general
Okay.
discussion.
The other thing I just wanted to add, pursuing an override for a new facility, I just wanted to clarify, is a debt exclusion override versus a general Prop 2.5 override, which is great because a debt exclusion override just covers a capital investment, a new building. It's not a permanent addition to the tax rolls. It goes away when the debt is paid off for the new facility. And the other thing is the state is offering very favorable rates, and construction, the construction industry is in a favorable mode currently as well for affordable construction. And so anyway, so our share of it would be a debt exclusion and obviously not a permanent add to the tax rolls. The other thing that is hopefully going to work out well is that by the time that we would be looking to pursue a debt exclusion for the city, it would be the same time that the safety complex will be coming off the tax rolls for our city. So it wouldn't be as significant an increase, the net effect. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
I wanted to just add too, in terms of the buildings, I mean, we have 4 old buildings. I mean, some of them have various ages, but to maintain the buildings, especially the very older ones, it's an expense. And so, you know, while making the investment now, it would save the city money in the future.
I agree, totally.
A lot of economies to be had.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular facility, White Brook, is the largest energy consumer of any city building there is, due to inefficiencies. And we've made some great strides and made some great savings through things that could be done more recently, but it's still a tremendous energy user.
Thank you. Good to know.
Any other comments? Okay, so this next question, I'm going to give you a fair warning. It's a tough question. And it goes to Mark first. Mark, how will you deal with budget shortfalls, especially the unexpected ones? And if you had to cut, what specific area would you cut first?
Well, yeah, there's always going to be a, excuse me, always going to be a budget shortfall every year. How would you go about cutting? Well, I really don't know the whole structure of the schools and the way the teachers and the faculty are. It's a pretty good question.
It's sort of the part that we don't want to think about now, but it really, I think as the media has reported each year, there have been cuts. And I know that that is a very difficult decision for administrators. So I think it's a fair question. And
It's a fair
it's
question.
also, if you had your druthers, you know, where would you tighten the belt first?
Well, probably the biggest expense is the faculty, unfortunately, but you hate to see anybody lose their jobs. So I go through that at work myself, so that's probably where you'd have to start.
Okay. Casey?
That is a very hard question, and it's one that I'm not, you know, prepared to fully answer at this moment because it really depends on the moment, because I don't really know what programs that are out there. I'm not completely versed in that. And it's also, you know, the situation as well, because when I'm faced with cutting a budget, I want to look at all of the things that are happening in the school. And I can't really make that decision right now before I really, you know, if I were to make a decision about cutting something, I really would look at every piece and then decide. Because it's not something that I can say, I'm going to cut this, you know. But it depends on what the impact is. Depends on what the impact is. And so I can say that I really would hold on to the kind of the arts and the enrichment programs. But I also know that there are ways to make up the budget through grants. and there are ways to kind of piecemeal things together through grants. So, I mean, at this time, I can't speak to that. I don't have the experience, and I really would go through it with really a fine-tooth comb before I make a hardline decision.
Great. Cynthia?
Boy, we're really in agreement tonight on a lot of things, which is great. You know, I do think there are things we can do when money is tight. I think there are so many grants out there that sometimes we just don't even realize what's out there as a potential. So I think we really need to apply for as many grants as we possibly can. When it comes to cutting, though, I will tell you, teachers run the school. Teachers are the driving force. And when you let many teachers go in a district, if you look at different towns, and I don't want to throw out different names of towns, but you can see where there have been significant cuts in the staff. And what you find is that the morale in the school goes down. The morale with the students goes down. Then it becomes a community morale issue, and it becomes this avalanche of negativity. I think if you hold on to your teachers, one, you're making a statement that your educators are important, and you are committed to them as people, but you're also making a commitment to your students. So I would cut teachers absolutely last, as a last-ditch possibility. The other thing is I would cut programs as little as possible. I think that we can make do sometimes with with lesser supplies. We can make do with not so new equipment, but we can't make do without teachers and programs.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say there is zero excess in our budget, sadly. There is nothing. We're really at bare bones, and every year is harder and harder. So that is a really tough question. But basically, I can't answer it because along the lines of what Casey and Cynthia have said, the way the budgeting process happens, and the way I think it should happen, is that we get input from every building administrator, and the building administrators get input from their school councils and from their teachers and from their staff. And then they all meet and discuss priorities and what they would really like to see happen or not happen, or what they would have to sacrifice, what they would sacrifice, what they would recommend. And then that goes through then a leadership team. And then when it comes to the school committee, we're reviewing based on all of their recommendations. And I guess what I'm trying to say, and I'm not saying it very well, is that I would completely and totally value the input from the ground up in terms of what are the priorities, and what, if we have to sacrifice something, what that should be. And really value all of that input along the way, and wouldn't feel comfortable ever making a suggestion as to what that should be at any given point in time, but really hearing what everybody has to say and what their priorities are, and valuing the fact that they're the ones closest and working closest to the situation, and so their opinions are critical, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Any more general discussion?
I also just wanted to touch base on, making cuts from staff, like, teachers. And I believe that teachers are really the value of, they're really kind of the driving force of the schools. And we see it. We see it when there's a cut and class sizes are very big. Although there was, the class sizes last year, there was one less kindergarten class. So there were about 25 kindergartners in each class. I do have to say that the teachers made it work, and they did a phenomenal job. I mean, my kindergartner got a great education, and there was ways of supporting that as a volunteer and classroom parent, and that piece. But they are very valuable. So I just wanted to.
And I have to make a plug for our teachers and administrators, because they have really come up with some very, very creative ways to maintain programs and services, grow programs and services despite cutting funds. And they've been phenomenal at being creative and figuring out a way to do it.
Yeah.
So I give a lot of kudos to our administrators and teachers and
Yeah.
staff members for pulling it together
Yeah.
every year.
And that
Making it
goes
work.
to the morale. I think that our teachers and our administrators in this town, they really believe in East Hampton, and they believe in the education of our children and the importance of that. And, you know, they're all pulling together kind of as a team. And so when the morale is up, then the results are there. So,
Right.
Okay, so we have come to the part of this evening where we are at the last question. So
Okay.
congratulations, you all made it through. And this begins with Casey. I think this is an excellent opportunity to sort of foray this question to a closing statement, and this evening was sort of designed this way, but it is, what is your vision, and what do you think you can realistically accomplish in the upcoming term?
So my vision is really about making the schools the very best that they can be. And I believe that happens in part with, you know, having funding for different programs, but also in connection and combination with a community, and a community taking responsibility just as much as the schools in education, because really what we're seeing now is the tighter a community is, you know, and the closer people are and connected with one another, there's more of motivation, there's more inspiration, there's things that get done. And so I'm seeing, you know, a real surge in progress in East Hampton, and I'm really happy to be part of this energy. And I believe, you know, by tapping into the energy, really will be successful in having that vision come alive. And I believe that, you know, a holistic approach to education, being at, you know, not just at the schools, not just the responsibility of the schools, but also as, you know, families and community, is very important. And it really makes for a well-rounded education, and whether that's community service or however that looks. But I definitely believe that it starts with a community. It starts with a really strong community. Is that the question?
Great. Cynthia, can I repeat it for you?
Sure.
Okay. What is your vision, and what can you realistically accomplish in the upcoming term?
Well, I have a number of visions.
Good.
I have a passion for education, and I have the energy and time right now to devote to really giving back to East Hampton. Okay, I love this town. My kids grew up here. I'm committed to the town, city. Actually, I still think of it as a town. Isn't that terrible? But I think that we can really improve. I think we have some tough times ahead of us. We have a lot of budget issues. We have a lot of mandates coming down from the state. We have MCAS and park decisions and DDMs, and there are a lot of critical issues within our school systems. And I think that pulling together, communicating with each other, reaching out to our parents and our families, supporting our administrators, supporting our staff, is a critical piece to getting through all of the issues that are occurring right now. Even as bad as our buildings are, I think morale, I agree with Casey, is pretty high. In a lot of ways, people just have a can-do spirit that says, I'm not going to give up. And I think we need to bank on that to get through those times. And part of that is reaching out to the community. I know we do that already, but we can do it better, and we can do it more and more often. And we can bring back those choice dollars. So that's really my whole passion, would be really to set up as much community involvement as I could, to broaden the communication between the school and our families, and to work as much as I can on bringing back those choice dollars and marketing our school system to other communities and to our own families and parents who are currently choicing out. I have a lot on my plate that I want to do.
Deb, what is your vision and what do you hope to accomplish in the upcoming term?
My vision also is for our schools to be the best that they can possibly be, and that's my goal, personal goal. And how are we going to do that? I think I agree with everything that Casey and Cynthia had to say. I think it's real important for us to become even closer to our parents, build stronger relationships with our parents. I like to refer to them as our customers. And really ensuring that we've got great customer service going on and great customer satisfaction. Surveys are going to be a more prominent, permanent fixture in our world, which I think is very good, and being responsive to those surveys and those results. We're working to continue to improve our website for communication purposes and really linking with the community, our parents, our families, making that increasingly valuable. I'd like to grow closer to the community, enhancing the volunteer efforts that are going on currently, working on expanding that. And the superintendent is beginning an e-news, kind of a regular e-news update kind of thing to reach out with parents. And I think that that's going to be great to keep parents more closely informed of what's going on, even at the state level with our schools, really help them to understand all that's happening. We need to utilize East Hampton media to a greater extent and take advantage of that opportunity. I also intend to be busy pursuing a new elementary facility for our district, and I'd like to continue to work on state advocacy. That's something that's I've been passionate about, really important to try to affect change on the state level. It's been frustrating for me and a little disheartening the more I've learned about decision making at the state level and trying to impact that. It's an overwhelming, sometimes hopeless feeling, but I want to continue to pursue that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, what is your vision and what do you hope to accomplish in this term?
Well, bringing back school of choice dollars back to East Hampton, that's got to be a big priority. And of course, doing that is not an easy job. Combining the 3 elementary schools to one school, I totally support that. It's something we need. Like to promote higher education for our students and get them career ready, get them to the next level. That's what the schools do from K all the way up to 12. So just continue to support the educators and staffs of the schools.
Can I add something?
I think it would not be appropriate. Okay. I want to thank you all for coming and for participating, and I think you guys just put in, I want to thank you for the short notice of the forum and that it was, it's just great that we were all able together to pull this off. So it's our first collaboration, so yay.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I also want to acknowledge and thank Mary Serez, who is here, and Cliff Lindahl, who's here, and they will be reporting on the debates for the Gazette and Republican, not necessarily respectively. And thank you all for watching. Thanks for tuning in, and good luck making your decision. Good night.